If aren't one of those people who think Tayuhi government is hiding countless secrets from you, constantly covering up the truth and rewriting history, then you haven't been paying attention. But if you suspect that something dark moves beneath the surface of our everyday lives, you would be absolutely right. I know this because I am one of the many people they hire to clean up their mistakes. I'm not entirely sure why they chose me. There's really nothing special about me. I wasn't a decorated soldier or a genius scientist, but perhaps that's exactly why I was the perfect candidate. I was already a loner, a ghost in the system, with no family to come looking for me. I wasn't going to cure cancer or create the next weapon of mass destruction. In their eyes, I was easily disposable. They approached me one day after I finished a grueling shift at a local fast food joint. I'm not sure I really had much of a choice, but my life was so dull and repetitive that I was ready for any kind of change anyway. The men who came to my door didn't even tell me what I would be doing. They simply said that if I wanted to truly serve my country, I should follow them. I walked out of my apartment and didn't look back once. As strange as my life has become, God knows I still don't regret it. The next year of my life was a descent into hell. I was put through extreme physical and mental training that pushed me past every breaking point I thought I had. I learned about things I only thought existed in high budget horror movies. I'm still not sure what would have happened to me if I'd failed the training, but I can't imagine they would have let me go back to my normal life with the secrets I had already begun to glimpse. Not once did they mention what I was training for. Not until the day I graduated. Upon getting the seal of approval from the higher-ups, I was brought into a small windowless room filled with men in black suits, and finally informed of my purpose. My new job would be hunting down failed experiments and other oddities that the government had failed to contain. Not all jobs would be the same. Some would be relatively easy, while others would be next to impossible. Most missions came with the option of bringing the target back dead or alive, but the directive was always clear. Alive was preferable for further experimentation. They wanted to know why their monsters failed, and they needed the biology intact to find out. My first assignment was on the easy side, almost like a starter kit for a hunter. The target was codenamed the Ice Cream Man. Like most of these failed experiments, he was at one point a human being. He still held the appearance of your typical friendly neighborhood ice cream truck driver. But beneath the skin, he was essentially a biological robot, only concerned with performing his programmed task. But what made him a target? I've never been told the why behind the creatures I hunt. I usually have to piece that together myself. The Ice Cream Man's truck was the real anomaly. The music that played from the horns worked as a human magnet. It emitted a frequency that entranced anyone within hearing distance, forcing them to approach the truck with a mindless smile. Once you reached the window, you bought the ice cream. I've heard the ice cream tastes delicious, but of course, no one ever knows for sure. Why? Because the ice cream causes anyone who eats it to enter a total fugue state for the next 12 hours. You carry on your day as you normally would, interacting with people and going to work. But the next morning, you remember absolutely nothing. You can see why this would be a valuable asset to the government, a way to pacify a population, or erase an event. Unfortunately, the scientists in charge of testing him underestimated the driver. Before they knew it, they had woken up 12 hours later in the lab, wondering where their test subject had gone. I was given a pair of enhanced noise-blocking earplugs and sent on my way. He wasn't hard to find. I just had to follow the trail of massive vehicles and crowds lined up for a sweet treat. I let him serve everyone in the area first. It made my job easier if no one could remember seeing the cleanup crew in action. After the crowd dispersed, I stepped up to the window. He attempted to serve me, but I reached into the truck and jammed a tranquilizer needle into his neck. He may have been a shell of a person, but he wasn't immune to good old-fashioned medication. I tied him up, hitched his truck to my vehicle, and dropped him off at the nearest facility. I thought the job would always be that simple. I was wrong. My next assignment was codenamed The Ripper. Unlike the Ice Cream Man, the Ripper was still mostly human. He hadn't lost his emotions, and he hadn't become a mindless drone. Perhaps that was the problem. Through intense and unethical experimentation, the Ripper had gained the ability to create intense concentrated seismic waves Essentially, he was a living earthquake. He had collapsed the very facility that was meant to hold him, killing dozens in the process. The main concern with the Ripper was the collateral damage. If he used his ability in a heavily populated area, thousands of lives could be lost in seconds. This was one of the few cases where I was advised to not bring the target back alive. Looking back, I feel as though this was another test. A different kind of test. The government wanted to see if I could kill a man who looked like me, talked like me, and felt like me, all without hesitation. They wanted to see if I had become the weapon they spent a year building. The Ripper was more difficult to find because he wasn't trying to attract attention. He was terrified of himself. But if the government wants you, they will find you. He had relocated to a small quiet town, changed his name, and even altered his face to escape. I almost felt bad for the guy. I doubted he had volunteered to be a guinea pig, and now all he wanted was a normal life. Once I found him, I kept my distance. I didn't want him going nuclear on me. I confirmed his identity by collecting DNA from his trash, and then the moment came. One night, as he walked to his front door, I put a bullet between his eyes from 200 yards away. It wasn't a good feeling. I had to convince myself it was necessary to save the town. I dropped his body off, received my payment, and moved on. But the scale of the horror was only increasing. My next target, codenamed Ghoul, was a true monster. I'm not sure if the government intended to create a ghoul, but the result was a nightmare. He had enhanced strength and speed, but there was one slight problem. He had developed a biological craving for human flesh. He escaped, as they always do. You'd think these scientists would get better at containment, but arrogance is a powerful blindfold. This mission was a nightmare because I was given strict orders. Ghoul had to be brought back alive. They wanted to study his metabolism. All my lethal weapons were taken and replaced with tranquilizers strong enough to drop a rhino. I requested a partner, but the request was denied with a cold silence. Ghoul had taken up residence in a forest that was a popular hiking trail. Disappearances were being chalked up to accidents or suicides, but the numbers were getting too high to ignore. The government shut down the trail for the weekend, leaving just me and the monster. I didn't shower for a week before heading in. I wanted him to smell me. I wanted him to come to me so I wouldn't have to track him through miles of dense brush. After an hour of hiking, I started finding the leftovers, bleached human bones scattered like trash. I knew I was close. Then I heard the branches shaking. He appeared on a large tree limb above me. He wasn't huge, maybe 5'6", but his skin was a sickly, translucent yellow. His hair was receding, and his eyes were pure, milky white. We stared at each other for a long moment before he jumped. There were 50 feet between us, and I thought I had time to aim. I was wrong. He moved like a glitch in a video game, soaring through the air and landing directly on my chest. I managed to shove a tranquilizer into his side, but his adrenaline was too high. He shrugged it off and tore a chunk of flesh out of my shoulder. The pain was blinding. As he lunged for my throat to finish the job, I jammed a second needle into his neck. His teeth grazed my skin before he finally went limp. I lay there in the dirt, bleeding and gasping, realizing that the things we were creating were far more dangerous than the secrets we were keeping. I took a month off to recover from the ghoul, but the assignments didn't stop. Next was Romeo. Romeo was designed to be the ultimate infiltrator, a charmer with a face that made the statue of David look like a rough draft. He was meant to seduce foreign diplomats, but he was too successful. He charmed everyone, including his own gods, and simply walked out the front door. Finding Romeo was easy. He was a narcissist who couldn't stay out of the spotlight. He was always at the center of a high-class party, surrounded by an adoring cult of followers. I had to separate him from his entourage. I attended one of his parties, wearing a suit that cost more than my old apartment. To my surprise, Romeo approached me. He spoke with a voice that felt like silk, but for some reason, his charm didn't work on me. Maybe it was because I had seen too much death to be impressed by a pretty face. He invited me to his estate, thinking I was another conquest. Inside his mansion, the walls were covered in photos of the people he had conquered. It was a gallery of trophies. When we were finally alone, he told me to undress. His voice held a strange, hypnotic power, but I resisted it. I jammed a tranquilizer into his neck, duct taped his mouth to stop his magic words, and dragged his heavy, unconscious body through a window to my car. Then came Kong. Kong was a splice of human and gorilla DNA, a smaller, more aggressive version of the legends people call Bigfoot. This was a kill task. The government didn't want him back alive. They wanted to dissect his brain to see why he had killed 2 scientists during his escape. They gave me specific parameters. Do not damage the head. Kong was hiding in a secluded forest. He wasn't a predator like Ghoul. He just wanted to be left alone. I felt a strange kinship with him. We were both products of a system that didn't care about our souls. I set up a sniper position overlooking his cave. When he walked out to stretch in the morning sun, I had my crosshairs on his heart. I missed the first shot. The wind shifted. The bullet hit the rock behind him. Kong didn't run. He turned and looked directly at the ridge where I was hiding. His eyes were human. He knew what I was. He knew why I was there. He just stood there and waited for the end. I hesitated for a long time, but eventually I pulled the trigger again. Bullseye. As I watched the air team hoist his body into a helicopter, I felt a deep, crushing disgust for my employers. But nothing compared to Delilah. Delilah wasn't a biological experiment. She was something older, something darker. She was a ventriloquist doll that had been recovered from an unverified site. She couldn't move on her own, but she could talk, and she could influence. She was a psychological parasite. A scientist had fallen under her spell and taken her home to a family of 4. They sent someone for me at last, he said, holding his hands up. I sat down and we talked. He told me there is no way out of this life. You either die on a mission, or you die because you know too much. He was a mirror of my own future. I had the answers I came for, and then, because I am a loyal cog in the machine, I killed him. I returned his body and received a simple nod of approval. Recently, there was a massive breach at the main facility. An explosion leveled half the building, and dozens of experiments escaped, including Delilah. I've been told she's looking for me. A stranger, a man who can walk through walls, approached me and gave me a message from her. I'm coming to pick you up soon. I tracked her to a cabin, where I was captured and shown a replica of my own dead body. They had tried to replace me with a clone, but the serum failed. In a final confrontation, I looked Delilah in the eyes. I saw every horror the government had ever committed. But instead of falling under her spell, I used a lighter to set her dress on fire. She burned like gasoline, screaming in a voice that wasn't human. I'm in hiding now. I hot-wired a car and disappeared into the night. I know the government is reading this. I know they've already dispatched a new cleaner to find me. Maybe it's someone just like I was, a loner looking for a purpose. To that person, I say this. Look at the eyes of the things you hunt. You might find that the monsters aren't the ones in the cages. The monsters are the ones holding the keys. I'm done being a puppet. I'm done cleaning up the blood. If you don't hear from me again, you'll know why. But for now, I'm still alive, and I'm finally wide awake. Word count estimate. This script is designed to be read at a measured, dramatic pace. With the added descriptions and expanded scenes, it will provide approximately 18 to 22 minutes of high-quality video content.